Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Happy Friday. Ooh, big weekend. Callow's got his cap stuff on. We know what that means. Caps are starting the 50th season. We'll get into that in a minute. And then biggest game ever for the Commanders. I was like joking with Kime yesterday because Resh Manuel, prolific tweeter Resh Manuel from Tegna and former colleague of mine at ESPN, tweets out, he somehow looked up how many games Kime has covered and said it's like going to be his 500th this year. And I like looked at him and I went, you waited to 495 to get the one that really, really, really mattered. Like, man, it's crazy.
No, I heard that with you guys yesterday, and all I could think of was like, yeah, in my career, not career, but if just being a fan, this is the biggest regular season game pretty much since 2012. Like, that's it with something on the line, like in terms of just not being like a playoff implication type game. Yeah, biggest one.
Like they had like big moments. They ended Philadelphia's undefeated season on Monday night a couple years ago. They beat Tampa off of that Super Bowl, and that was a really great game. They ended Pittsburgh's undefeated season, but in none of those years was this team tracking this way. That it was like a great moment. It was a big game, and it was a great moment, and the outcome was great, but we haven't had one of these where it's like, obviously this team is tracking in a different direction. Everybody wants to see what it is against an opponent that they know is going to be there in January. And so I think that's where I think this is real, and this is a real big game. But I do want to start with this. Stop saying measuring stick. Stop it. It's not. Like, stop. It's week 6. Stop. They're just 3-2, and their defense is ranking in the bottom third of the NFL right now. I always talk about this. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. We're actually catching their defense at a better time than I think it's going to be in a couple of months. Like, call me in a couple of months and tell me that Baltimore's pass defense is ranked 26th, because I just don't think that that's what it's going to be when we get there. Their offense, I'll get to in a minute, is outrageous, but like their defense is not functioning the way it did a year ago, and it's not doing what they did a year ago. And honestly, too, it's week 6 on the road against a team that over the last, I have the stats somewhere, over the last 20 years, they've got like the 3rd best home win percentage. It's not, if they lose, it's not a, well, I told you they're not good. So stop saying it's a measuring stick. It's not. If they lose 50-0, I'll hear you on it, but like, that's not going to happen.
Can I call it a temperature check then? Because this is
we're on a heat check. Sure, we're on a heat check.
Okay.
Heat check for sure.
All right, so like same difference though. I use this. I kind of went on my show yesterday and talked about this. How this, like they're going up against a superior organization overall. You and I are in agreement that the Commanders, though, right now in this moment in time, are the better team. But in 8 weeks, come talk to me about the Ravens, because we all know what they can be.
What? I actually think they're very similar. I mean, they both have what has been unstoppable offenses through 5 weeks and defenses that can be had. Like, so I actually think they're actually quite similar walking into this game.
But what I'm getting at is I think the Commanders have gelled faster than any other team in the NFL with the turnover they had, with the quarterback that they had, with the
in NFL history. They've gelled faster than any team in NFL history.
Yes. And so I just look is what's that worth in a game like this? Against an organization that you want them. You talked about this with Jerry Sandusky and with Kime yesterday. An organization that you want to mirror yourself after.
That's
like who doesn't want to be like the Ravens at this point? This isn't like I envy Baltimore. They're like the Steelers. They're like the Patriots with Belichick. They are an organization that you want to be like. Let's just see how you stack up against them. And I'm with you though. The measuring sticker, we'll call it temperature check though, is let's see how this organization does with one of these games where when's the last time that we had to talk about CBS blocking a game because we all know it should have been on prime time? Like, that's never really happened in that era where the primetime flex thing has happened. Let's just see what happens with this organization to see, if they sink or swim in a game like this with all this hype.
I agree. I'm not, it's interesting. Like, it's happened so fast And I think the most important thing, like to me, was after the Cincinnati game, I went, all right, let's see what happens. I actually expected them to lose in Arizona because like it's just natural. Like they never came home. It's a short week. It's very tough, ask to go from a Monday night game on the road to a game out west. They never went home. They practiced. That turned out to be the right thing to do. They practiced out there. And I'm like, are they really ready for this? Like what they did and the hype that's going to go around it. And everybody saw Jaden do it and everybody's talking about him. And they went and boat raced the team. And then people I know a couple weeks later go, well, they only beat Arizona. Oh, I don't know. Arizona beat San Francisco last week, could have won in Buffalo, beat the Rams. I don't think they suck. So I don't know why you think if Washington beats them, they must suck. But that's that's the old school thought process of,
yes,
well, we better fire our coach because we lost to Washington this week. We're just not good enough for this. So this is, to me, the first big test. I agree. I think it's the first big test of all of this, but I don't think it is something that you make a judgment off of. I really don't. I think it's too early for that. And I really hope, short of they somehow get exposed in a way that we haven't seen yet, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
But assuming we get what everybody thinks we're going to get, which is probably a pretty high scoring game, probably one littered with crazy plays because these quarterbacks make crazy plays. So it's showtime. I have a feeling that we're going to walk out of this and go, it was a really good game. And I don't think it's very telling about either one of them because for Baltimore, it's been there, done that. It's a measuring stick for them. They're the ones that do this every year. And they're the ones that are sitting at 3-2. And they're the ones at home. For Washington, this is all new. And that's why I just don't feel like it's all happened so fast that everyone's going, well, I guess they're really good. So let's find out how good they are. Let's slow down. Let's just see. Let's see what happens. I know what's going to happen if Washington wins. People are going to lose it for good reason. They're going to lose it. But I don't really feel like this is a classic one of those measuring stick games. Call me in a couple of years if we are Baltimore and we are on this trajectory of winning regularly. This is old hat for them. They've already played 3 big games this year. They played in Dallas. They played Cincinnati last week. That was a big game for them. I know it feels really new and it's fun that it's really new and I can't wait to do it. I'm really excited about doing one that feels like had an upward trajectory, big game. But I just don't think we're there yet because they don't have the history of winning like this. So that's why it still remains new. And that's why I'm pushing back on this. Well, let's make judgments off of win or loss here. If they lose, they're 4-2 with Carolina coming here next week. Relax.
I mean, but I would make this argument just to push back a little bit. I go back to, I think it was Bobby Wagner. It was Wagner that was asked about before the Giants game. Hey, you've only been here a little bit, but Daniel Jones always kills this team, right? And he kind of looked at, I think it was JP that asked the question. He kind of looked at JP, was like, I haven't been here. I don't care what this guy has done. And so I kind of take a little bit of that, though, heading into this week. If you're going to tell me that you don't care when, you have this kind of history with a bad team and a bad quarterback like Jones, why not flip it around the other way of say, it doesn't matter if we've been bad for all these years. We are playing a good team and a good organization. Let's go out there and beat them. And they're 45 minutes away from one stadium to the other. I don't think they're looking at it as a rivalry. That talk died on Wednesday easily, very easily. But I don't know. I want to flip that energy the other way around here of, screw it. You are ahead of schedule. Why not go in for win this? And by the way, I hated this on Monday and Tuesday with some of the fans and some of the media going, oh, well, if they go in there and they play a close game, I think we can all take that as a good week. No, that's loser talk. That's in the past now. I want to win this game. I think you go to win this game and you have a different kind of feel in this organization already that you should be going for this, not just being let's just see what happens. Yeah, that's where I've landed.
I do like the slate has been wiped clean. Even early in the season, I got into before the Cincinnati game. I won't tell you who, but I got into it with one of the reporters because they were just convinced they were going to lose and actually lose badly. And I'm like, why? I'm like, they were coming off a game where they had not been stopped. They'd scored on every drive they had the ball. And I'm sitting there going that doesn't impress you? Why? So why don't you think it's possible they can go in there and win? And then after they did, it was kind of everybody was a little sheepish about oh yeah, I guess everything is different here now. So, like, why not just let it be different now? The slate is wiped completely clean. None of these people were here for any of this. A few of them were, and they're the ones like with the giddy smiles on their face, like Duran and John and Terry, who are like, I can't believe it. I'm sitting in this locker room and we're winning again. Or you catch clips of Sam Cosmi going, this is fun, playing with number 5. But everybody else who's here now is like, I don't know what you guys are talking about because that's not my I haven't lived that. That's not my lived reality with you all. And that's a good thing. I mean, if there was ever a team that needed the slate wiped clean like this, it's this one. Really. I mean, they took the laptop, they took Hunter's laptop and they wiped the whole thing. And we're here. And this one for me, this is a John Wick game. Let's find out exactly what we are. Like, you don't know how dangerous we are. So let's show up and show you how dangerous we are. And I think that's where I am on it. But like, I just don't feel like they're not on this level of consistency yet with the Ravens, the Chiefs, or the Bills. It was earned. Okay, it was earned. They haven't earned that yet. This has been a great start. I agree. This is ahead of schedule, and let's enjoy it and start believing in it and stop with the, I don't know when the other shoe's going to drop. Like, we can stop that crap. But I don't think we're at measuring stick yet because we're not the team annually in the playoffs. They are. So we're trying to be them.
To your point, too, about the Bengals game, I think you and I both came away, or not from the Bengals game, but from the Giants game. You and I both came away of, you can look at this one half full or half empty, where the red zone offense clearly got them in position so many times. And I think my argument that week, too, was if they score on 2 of those drives, they score 2 touchdowns instead of 2 field goals. That game is so out of hand, it wouldn't have mattered. And that's where I think like people, it started there of the attitude of, this is kind of like the same old team or whatever. Then it flipped against the Bengals. That's where I've landed here is I've flipped now. Like, I fully expect this to be a close game. They should not be out of it at any point. And in fact, if there's one thing that everybody has been talking about, it's, they've not played anybody. And Jaden, hasn't had to do too much. Well, screw it. If it's a close game, let's see what Jaden does in a close game. Like, I'm ready to see what he can do.
Cincinnati coulda, woulda, shoulda beat Baltimore last week.
Yep.2
I mean, they had 10-point leads in the fourth quarter, missed a field goal in overtime that would have won. Like, they should have won last week. They should have beat them, but they didn't, like whatever. I really like the Cincinnati one. When I go back to, that was the beginning to me. That was the sign of the beginning. Arizona actually was way more reaffirming to me about we're in a new spot. And then last week I started calling it new normal, because if you're just going to stack it up and back it up like that, then you have dropped whatever your perception was of what you were in the past. And this team is nothing like it was in the past. It was the Arizona one that really got me. Short week, turnaround, like that's a loss. Like 9 times out of 10, even if you're the better team, it's a loss. They not only did not lose, they played by far not close their best game of the season and blew that team out. And that team had been really competitive, like extremely competitive up to that point. So like, I'm a believer too. Like, I'm on it and I'm fully on the belief, but this is my John Wick game. Let's find out how dangerous we really are, because I know what they are. Here's the other one I want to stop. Jaden is not Lamar. Lamar is not Jaden. They are very different players. And I'm not just saying that because I don't want to set him up to be like, you're just like an MVP, which is unfair as well and way too ahead of the curve. But if you really think back to the beginning of Lamar's career, and Jerry Sandusky was on yesterday, and the first thing he said was, I'm like, what was the moment for Lamar? Because I think the throw to Terry in Cincinnati was our first, like, oh my God, we have a really special player here moment. He was like, it took a while for him and he couldn't really come to it. He goes, first start he made, he ran the ball 27 times. Like, remember, we were complaining about Jaden running 16 because he'd been blitzed up the wazoo by Tampa Bay. And we're like, that's too much. And he said the same thing. Lamar has never in his career been as accurate as Jaden has been in his first 5 games.
Yep.
And so, one, Jaden is a far more accomplished passer than Lamar ever really has been. I don't know that anybody can run the ball the way Lamar Jackson has run the ball as a quarterback. I talk about Jaden's instincts being kind of off the charts. Here's an OG with that. He's got these unbelievable spidey sense instincts. And I think the one other difference between him and Jaden has showed strength, But go watch this play last week where Lamar threw a touchdown pass. It was like one of those wow Superman plays where he's literally pushing off defensive ends because he's as strong as they are. Like, he is a unicorn, and we may have one too. But I actually don't think their skill sets are really, they're similar because they're both athletic. But I actually think Jaden is a far more, at this point, accomplished passer. And I think it will prove out over time that he is a better thrower, passer. He's a throw-first quarterback. Lamar had to develop into that, and still, go watch this year, is still somewhat almost inexplicably inaccurate on intermediate and deep throws when Jaden is not. Like, I actually don't think they're that similar, other than they are extremely high-level athletes that play the position.
You hit all of the points too with the passing. I think they run very differently too, and they have different moves. Like, I think it's a little bit of hyperbole to make this comparison with Jaden, but Jaden's got a little like Barry Sanders in him, where the guys are right there, and all of a sudden he makes one little twitch and he's falling over himself behind him, right? And Jaden, in the first 5 or 10 yards, I'll take over just about anyone in the NFL. Lamar, when he starts running, it takes him a sec, but then when he's gone. Like, he turns on the burners. Like, they're different runners too. I don't even think people really realize that. And their moves are just completely different. We're talking about different styles here all across the board. I'm with you. I knew that right away, and I knew when the comparison started, both of them were going to come out and say we're not the same player.
Yeah, I mean, there's like Lamar is more LeBron to me, and like Jaden is more like Steph. He can hit the long shots. Like, he's back up and chuck up the. Like, I don't think, but they're both greats. That's the point. They're both greats, but they're very different players. So, like, all these comparisons, I'm like, I don't even think, like, other than they're like really athletic and they've kind of come in as Heisman Trophy winners, like, and they're both very adept at running, I actually don't see it really. And if you really go back to the beginning of Lamar's career, he's not even close to as accomplished a passer as Jaden is. So anyway, I want to stop that too. All right, a few things from the game. I mentioned Baltimore's defense really isn't performing particularly well, especially against the pass. There are a couple things about that. Kyle Hamilton's the chaos agent for them. He's very adept at blitzing. He's a great pressure player. He seems to have a great feel and is kind of around the ball. Washington so far has, and this is, I think, probably the underrated part of what Kingsbury has done here, is they have protected against the other team's best players. Myles Garrett didn't make the stat sheet. Budda Baker did not really make any impact plays. Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson was held back, had almost no real impact on the game in this over the last 3 games. In the Giants game, they scored on every drive. That's a really good front. They were able to like control them as well. Hamilton's the guy, 14. You got to find him. He's the chaos agent. He's the one that's around the ball when the ball ends up getting knocked out. He has very adept blitzing abilities. He'll go around the edge. He'll come around the center of the line. He's the one. So I'm circling him, and I trust this team and Jaden and Kingsbury because they've handled stars so far. And if they do, Baltimore, when they bring 4, is not getting a lot of pressure. And on the back end, this is where their problem is. Like, I think the back end can be had. I think you could hit them on some big plays. Marcus Williams has been a little slow getting to the ball, so maybe the age, I don't know, maybe the age is catching up to him a little bit. Maybe Marlon Humphrey's age is catching up to him a little bit. But they're in a weird middle ground because the communication doesn't look the same on the back end. It's a different staff. Communication doesn't look the same on the back end. I'm not sure their speed is what they need on the back end. And if they don't bring pressure, they're not getting it from 4. So when they do blitz, they can be had. So there are big plays here. My point is this. There are big plays to be made against them if this O-line performs the way that it has over the last few weeks, for sure.
I look at this game as like almost like a college game. Like, I think the first half is going to be both teams trying to run and establish the run. And then you and I both know what happens in the third quarter. One team probably scores, gets maybe a 7 or 10 point lead, and this thing is going to open up. I think we're going to get a full blown like second half shootout. I think it's going to start slow, but then it's going to open up eventually in like the third or the fourth quarter.
Baltimore in the second half has given up 14 points or more in 4 of the 5 games. They've given up at least 19 in 3 of them. So their defense wears down. They've kind of become this team. I know this is their thing. Like, They don't understand. They blow leads. They almost blew that Dallas lead. They had a comeback last week because they're capable of it, but they gave up a ton of second half points to Cincinnati too. So you just got to weather it with them. Weather it. And I think they wear down a little bit. So I agree with you. I think the second half is going to be wild, like absolutely wild.
Yep.
I mentioned this earlier, like Lamar's intermediate and deep throws still remain off, like oddly inaccurate. When he hits them, you're dead, because they do so many other things right. Him running, Henry running, like all this stuff that I really appreciate. Like Monken and Kingsbury are kind of like mirroring each other with the creativity on first down. They're getting themselves in these really good, like it's not just straightforward runs with Henry and now it's 2nd and 6. They're throwing stuff on the edge to get Flowers going. They're using Justice Hill really well. All of their first downs are very different looking. So they start their drives and they start each series really well. So I'm very impressed by that. When they get into a situation where Lamar is throwing intermediate and deep throws, they're oddly still very inaccurate and off. If he hits them, you're dead. That means they're going to score 40 points. If he does it, you have a chance. It's kind of the way I kind of look at it with him. And the last thing really for Washington's defense is, I mean, good luck with their run game. It's good luck. They're averaging over 200 yards a game, which in the modern NFL is stupid. And Derrick Henry, this is a weird one. Like the way he's going, like they could have back-to-back MVPs and be two different players. I mean, that's ridiculous that could happen. He's on pace for about 1,700 to 1,800 yards rushing. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. We're in the red zone. I don't know how you stop them. And so they got a couple of superpowers. Henry in this offense is absurd. I don't know why the NFL let this happen. It's terrible. And I just kind of at this point go, I wish you luck. And I'm on DQ and Joe Witt's side on this. If he gets to the second level, you're dead, right? You've got to stop him before the motor gets humming. And that means this is on the defensive line to win at the line of scrimmage. And at bare minimum, get him to cut back to slow him down. Because if he gets up to speed going straight ahead, these turn into these massive runs. And he's a stiff arm away from an 80-yard touchdown. So they got to get on him early. It's their only choice.
Yeah, no, they're going to, like I said, try to establish the run in that first half. That's why I said I think it's going to be a slower first half, but it still could have some scoring, like a 14-13 type game in the first half. Then it completely opens up. Like I said, this one is actually going to come down to, once again, this team does best, the Commanders, on complementary football. If they can get ahead by 10 points and force the Ravens to start relying on Lamar a little bit more, I think they come out with a victory. But we don't know if they will be able to stop the run enough with this rushing attack. It's funny, though. To me, their rushing attacks are the Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. Yeah. They just happen to have one Hall of Fame running back and Lamar. We happen to have Jaden and then an offensive line that it doesn't matter who's back there, whether it's Robinson, Eckler, or McNichols. So it's a different kind of rushing attack.
They have two Hall of Fame runners on their team. I mean,
yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is. And, for the first time ever, we get to say this. Crab cakes in football. That is what Maryland does this weekend. That is what Maryland does.
It's true. Yes.
All of it.
Correct.
It's all happening for once. All right, let me take a quick break. Ray, watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let's go through the Week 6 slate. First, let's just start with what happened last night, which is the Niners did gut out a win over Seattle, which I think is more telling about Seattle. I'll say the same thing about Pittsburgh on Sunday night last week. You're at home. That team's really beat up. They're missing too many people. They lost more in the middle of the game. How did you give up 32 points and lose? Pittsburgh led last week. I think Seattle let one get away. They were slow starting. They looked sluggish. They fell behind. They came back, but it was too late. And the Niners find ways to use even unknown people to get what they need to get done. They are wildly beat up right now. Kittle's beat up. Debo's beat up. They're running out of running backs again. They are massively beat up, but here they are at 500. And if they are to get McCaffrey back, then they'll be dangerous again. We all know it.
Ayuk has been a non-factor most games, though. He had his best game last week. I think he had the 7 or 8 for 150-ish. Hasn't caught a touchdown yet this year, by the way. So if he gets going, that's another element of their offense. I'm going to point back to Seattle on this one, though. Geno was freaking awful last night. Like he was missing
Agree.
wide open passes. He was like looking really, I don't even think frustrated was the word. He almost looked like sad and depressed on the sideline. I mean, maybe he was just being level. I don't want to like knock him too hard, but it's finally hit this point with Geno where I like Geno a lot. I love his story, like becoming a starter, but we all knew this was going to be a thing. His ceiling is only so high. And I think it's finally hit that point. DK got really pissed off at certain points yesterday too, where he popped a headset on. I don't know if you saw that clip. But this is the problem when you go with kind of a veteran like Geno and you don't have dynamic playmakers that he can get the ball into their hands. There's a ceiling. They've hit it. And I think they need to start searching for their next answer quarterback.
I mean, honestly, like anybody would take the trio of receivers that they have.
Yes.
Like anybody would take Kenneth Walker. I mean, like they're not devoid of talent. And yeah, they were bad. They felt extremely sluggish to me last night. This is part of why I don't love these Thursday games. You can get this where it takes a little while to kind of ramp up to it. The Niners, to their credit, built out a lead, held on to it, and they kind of been there, done that too often. But geez, I mean, like you're playing them at home on a short week. They're missing all of these people. Like, I don't know how you don't win. That's on you. Like, that's really, really on you. All right, we get London round 2, Trev versus Caleb. Let's see. Jacksonville won last week, first time. Caleb had his first real big numbers game last week, first time. I would buy the Bears if Caleb kind of turns a corner to be a factor as we move, because they've navigated their way to like 3-2. So I'll buy them. I don't buy Jacksonville turning the season around. I wasn't surprised they won a week ago. Give me the Bears there. Like there's no home field advantage. They play there every year. There's no home field advantage. Give me the Bears to knock off the Jaguars over there.
These are usually low-scoring games in London. I always take the under on these games, and it hits probably over half the time. My thing here is going to be who doesn't have the back-breaking turnover. And same thing, it's like the Spider-Man meme. It's Caleb pointing at Trev. I think Trev is going to have it, though. Bears win this game. It's going to be close. It's going to be low-scoring, but Bears win this game ultimately.
Sneaky, interesting game. Cardinals at Packers. Very interesting. The Cardinals have had a rough schedule here, and they've gotten themselves to a point where they're alive. Like they just played in San Francisco. They had to play in Buffalo. They're going up to Lambeau. They got us at the worst time possible. Like they've actually had a really rough schedule here to start the season. I think they knew some of those were going to be really tough, and they've been really, really competitive with the lone exception, the Washington game, frankly. This is sneaky interesting. I think Green Bay wins. I think their defense is turning. Everybody keeps talking about what's happening on offense, and Jordan Love's coming back, and now Romeo Doubs got all pissed off and had to get suspended for a game and all that stuff. Their defense is starting to come around, which is why I think they're actually a contender. So I think the Packers win. I'm not going away because the Cardinals have been very competitive. I like the bus guy. I think he overthought himself against us, turned around and didn't. Nice comeback last week. I think it's a close-ish game again. 26-20 Packers.
I'm going to flip it the other way. I have a couple of factors here for the Cardinals. Cardinals, for some reason, just don't play well at home this year. So they played really well in Buffalo, right? They played really well and won in San Francisco. The Packers haven't been amazing at home either. I think the Cardinals actually go on the road here and beat the Packers. By the way, did you see the Kyler tweet earlier this week by chance? Did you happen to see what he tweeted out?
That he has a deal with Call of Duty?
Yes. He was like, thanks everybody for memeing me into getting a bunch of money. I have a deal with Call of Duty now. And I think because he's self-aware now and he's actually got that deal, I think he's actually a little, I don't know, more at ease that happened. Give me the Cardinals to win a 23-20 game in Lambeau. I don't like the Packers right now.
Yeah, to your point about the Cardinals don't play well at home, 4-21 in their last 25.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's a great stadium too, by the way. That's one of my favorite ones. It's a great one. All right, let's see. Red Zone specials this week. Colts, Titans, and Falcons, Panthers. Don't care. Assume Falcons will win against Carolina. And Colts, Titans, I think they're non-factors now. I love the Flacco story. I don't know if Richardson's playing or not, but like I love the story, but I don't buy them. They're middling a little too much. Pittman's now hurt. Titans, I don't buy at all. So, I gave them I gave them the benefit of the doubt with the new coach and some of the changes they made at the beginning of the season. They've come out of the gates like a flop. So those are my red zone specials for this week. Let me know how they go.
I'm just glad.
Let's see.
I'm just glad the Titans are back, so we get another Will Levis lowlight. That's all. With them off the bye week, we didn't get any Will Levis memes last week. I think we're gonna get one this week.
Drake May makes his first start against Houston. I just don't think they score enough to win games like this. And, I actually love their defensive personnel. I just think this is the same thing with Cleveland. If the offense is going to be that bad, it will affect how they play overall, and they'll have bad moments. So I like Houston here, although I am interested to see what Drake May looks like in his first start for sure.
No, I like Houston here as well. Patriots just don't score enough. He doesn't have any weapons, Drake. So, I'm interested to see what he looks like, but, how much – it's not unlike us. How much can you measuring stick his game when he doesn't have, anyone to throw to, no weapons on that offense?
Yeah.
Let's see how he looks, but I'm not even really taking this one away as judging him because that offense is just so bad.
You'll like this headline today. Bake, Rattler, and Roll. New York Post is pumped about me. Baker versus Rattler. I don't know what I don't know about him. There's always these assumptions. Well, they're playing him, they're going to lose. I don't know anything about them. So, I don't know if they're going to be good or fine or whatever. I do know that, they have extremely dangerous skill position players, and Tampa brings so many blitzes, and it's actually, I think it's coming out of style, honestly. These heavy blitzing teams are getting scored on a lot these days. So I don't know what I don't know. I will obviously pick Tampa to win because I don't trust that they'll win with him. And I just don't trust the Saints in general. But this is a classic. Don't just assume anything. The guy hasn't played yet. So I think it's just kind of hard to know.
No, I'm with you here. This is actually what I love that, when teams do this, when they're like, all right, we drafted the guy in the mid rounds. He was a highly touted prospect. He kind of reminds me of Hal, right? Where Hal was a first-round pick, but then just fell out of favor and became a mid-round pick. Let's see what they've got. He has no excuse with all the skill position players they have. I'm also very interested to see what he does. I'm with you. I think Tampa wins this, but I'm really interested to see what they've got in Rattler. And good for them for rolling the dice on him because guess what? If it works, your boy Carr might be in trouble down there all of a sudden.
I don't get any credit for Bake, Rattler, and Roll. That's a great headline.
I gave you a fake boo. I acknowledged it.
All right, fine. Let's see. Browns, Eagles. That's not going to go our way. We watched Cleveland. As much as I want to see the Eagles lose, and I think I was mad at Pittsburgh last week because they just let a layup go with Dallas. They caught Dallas at the perfect time and couldn't knock them off. I think we've seen Cleveland's offense, and I don't think we're going to like the outcome here either. So the Eagles will figure out a way and they'll win.
I think there needs to be someone that needs to look this up. This is week 6. If the Browns lose, they will have lost to the entire NFC East in the first 6 weeks of the season. We need to check if that's ever happened because I don't know if any team has had to play the NFC East in 4 out of 6 weeks. They've got to be the first AFC team to ever do it because I don't know if that's ever fell that way. I think it's going to happen. I think our best case scenario here is this one ends up being close and the Eagles win, and they're still freaking out up there. That's best case scenario. My favorite
would actually be a tie because that would be inexplicable. That would be really great.
Yes,
that would probably epitomize both teams if they tied. That would be really great. These two I don't care. Chargers, Denver, Pittsburgh, Raiders. Boy, the Pittsburgh is falling back to earth fast. Raiders are. I don't even know what they are right now, and I don't care. And I'm now starting to believe Baltimore and maybe Cincinnati, if they were to get hot in the middle of the season, will surpass them. Denver and the Chargers, I appreciate that old Shawnee P's got them playing competitively, and I appreciate that Harbaugh's got the Chargers playing competitively, but I don't believe that either team's a factor this season, so don't care about either one of these games.
That Denver game is going to be 9-6. It's going to be no scoring, just defensive stand.
So let's see. All offseason and summer, I've stated there's just no chance that Dallas has the same record that they had a year ago, that I see more of a possibility of them careening off the cliff and going crazy and imploding than turning around and being a factor again. But I will say this. I will be worried about them again if they win this game because Detroit's a better team than them. Detroit feels more in line to make a run towards the NFC Championship at a Super Bowl again than Dallas really does. But Dallas showed me something last week, missing the people they were missing to go on the road, have terrible conditions like they were up in Pittsburgh with that storm, and get through it. They win the toss, take the ball, and score. They won. I think that was among the most impressive wins of the season this year. So I want to give credit where credit is due. And if they turn around without the players that they're missing again and actually win this one against Detroit, well, maybe they could change my opinion about them. I expect the Lions to win because I think they're catching Dallas at the right time. But if Dallas does do this, then they will show you there is something there that you better be concerned about for the rest of the season. This is a measuring stick game for them. This is a measuring stick game.
I agree. And there's two things, or the last 2 weeks that have happened with Dallas, which should have you worried about them moving forward, is I look at that Giants Thursday night game. It's a rivalry game, but Dallas just kind of held on and won that. And even the body language after that game was very much like, thank goodness we won. Not even like happy that they won, but just like relief. And then all they did was hold on against one of the best defenses in the league. And Dak looked clutch against the Steelers to come back and win that game. Those are two character wins in any season for any team, essentially. If they win this one, I'm legitimately worried about them as well. Even if it's a close, uglier game, if they eke it out, guys, do you know what the problem with Dallas has been all of these years? Is they can't win the tough playoff games. All of a sudden, they will have won 3 of those style games. That's if it ends up looking like that this week. I'm with you. I'm worried about them if they win this. I think Detroit does win, but I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close all the way.
I do too, and that's where I am on it. Like I haven't written them off. I still think they're good, but I don't think they're as good, and I'm waiting for the implosion, and they're doing the opposite right now. So if they get through this, you got to start about them. All right, last one is Sunday Night Football should have been flexed. It isn't. We get Cincinnati and New York. Cincinnati's season is over if they don't win this game, period. And that's why I think they will. Like, I think they're a better team. I don't know how the Giants are going to cover those receivers. I think Burrow lights them up again, puts up big numbers again. And I think their season's over if they don't win this game. So I think they're going to, and I think they're going to knock off that. Albeit I appreciate that the Giants, I think, are playing at a level that I didn't quite expect it. Have won a couple of games that I didn't quite expect them to play. But I think the Danny Dimes revenge tour ends this weekend. I think Cincinnati knocks them off.
The Giants, I feel like they took my mantra for the Commander season, striking distance. If they're in a close game, they've actually been really, really good. But once these get out of hand a little bit and Jones has to start throwing the ball, like actually pushing it down the field, they're dead in the water. That happened against Dallas. That game was really close for a while. And when Dallas finally pulled ahead by 2 possessions, they couldn't do anything. I feel the same way as you do. Cincinnati is going to get up on them, and then Dimes is going to have to pass the ball, and it's just not going to work out for him.
I will take a quick break. It's been months, Bram. Why haven't you talked about my team? Well, now I will, Ted. Now I will. Season 50 is upon us, and we'll preview it next. Bram Watch, I show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Here we go, Jim. Caps season 50 begins tomorrow against the Devils. For some reason, the Capitals had to wait longer than anybody else to play a game. NHL season's been kind of off and running, apparently in Finland. Not that anybody knew about that. And here we go. This is a very unusual team this year. They are still trying to do the thread the needle part of it as we're chasing records with some old guys, and we got to bring in some new guys. And then we didn't call up all the young guys. So let's take stock of all of it, as they have what is a very unusual team, I think, this year, because they made a lot of moves in the offseason for big money established players. Meantime, they brought up a couple of these younger guys, and they're hanging on with a couple of the older ones. So just give me the general first. What do you think of the makeup of the roster as they enter the season?
It's funny. I think this is a very Commanders offseason. They turned over a bunch of pieces. They went for a home run or two, though, which I think there's some factors that we need to unpack in just a little bit. But I think there's a lot of new faces. I think Tom Wilson was the one that said it last month when training camp got underway. He walked in the room, was like, I've never seen so many new players in this locker room with how established they are. And there's some good and some bad with that. I love the Capitals culture. Other players in the league talk about how well this team takes you on and is a family-oriented team. But I also think with a huge turnover of guys, maybe the culture shifts a little bit in a good way.
Correct.
Maybe it's a little bit, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. But I think maybe getting some new energy here maybe invigorates the franchise a little bit here. There's only so much you can do when your culture's good, and it's just been the same over and over again, but you haven't won a playoff series since 2018. So how good is the culture at that point? So I look at this offseason, and it was very Commanders-esque, a lot of turnover. The biggest deal that I think we're all going to talk about is the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal. They bring on a massive contract for a lot of money. But don't forget, they unloaded a goaltender and Darcy Kemper, who made an amazing save last night, by the way. Never did that here, but he did it in his first game with the Kings. But they bring on a massive contract. Does it gel? And my instant reaction to most of this is I don't think it is. I'm a little bit down on all of the guys that they brought in. How fast will they gel? It was a slow start last year, and they barely got into the playoffs. Does that happen again, and then they miss the playoffs? Remember, basically the last 2 seeds last year, remember, everybody was losing. Nobody even wanted those last 2 seeds.
The Flyers lost 1 million games, which opened the door for them to get there.
Correct.
In the
they
end.
They shouldn't have done it. So does that happen again? I don't know. But if they don't gel fast enough, they won't be there in the end. My instant reaction here is I just think there are too many moving parts here. I don't like the makeup of the team.
Carberry's been put into funny positions in both of his first 2 years. The first one was thread the needle with all the old guys while you bring along some young guys and try to be competitive while you're chasing a record. And then they went, well, that didn't really work out. We kind of barely got there. So we really need to start the transition, which I've been harping on for 3 years, should have started a couple of years ago, but whatever. But they finally have done it. But then they went and made some moves that might upset the room. So they're asking him, clean that up too and make it competitive. So I love him. I think he's a very good coach. He's had a hard job here in year 1 and now in year 2. He's had a hard job. So I'm team Carbs, as you know, and I recognize this, that I think they've put him in unusual positions to be successful in both of the years he's been here. So let's see what kind of job he does with the group that he has.
I think with Carberry, it's worth noting, he got that 5-year deal. That's firmly to make sure that he was good to go after number 8 does whatever he needs to do. I don't think he's in any jeopardy here. I like Carberry. You and I both like him.
Yeah, I do a lot. I think he's a very good coach. I think he showed exactly what kind of coach he was at the end of the year, willing them to get to the playoffs at the end of the season.
And hasn't hesitated to change what he does either. That's the biggest problem with some of these older NHL coaches, like Peter Laviolette. He didn't change what he did. He didn't change his philosophy. They get into a weird position where they're not competitive. Last year, he had no problem dumbing things down for a little bit in November, December when they started really slow, and then ramped it back up, and then also gave young guys a chance along the way. It's one of the biggest factors of the couple previous regimes that they actually gave some of these guys a chance. And so I like him a lot. I don't think he's any kind of danger here. One thing I will throw at you as well, though, that's going to be a huge factor. If Charlie Lindgren doesn't continue what he did last year, they're in trouble a little bit. I like Logan Thompson, but Lindgren, we know how this works in the NHL. Can he do this 2 years in a row? I don't know. I love the guy, but does a guy who's been a perennial backup, is he able to repeat what he did last year? That's going to be tough. So like I said, all these
the answer to that, which is why they should have traded him last year. It's probably not going to happen. They had the hot veteran goaltender that some other team could have wanted, but they didn't want to pull the trigger, I guess.
I'm guessing they didn't get the deal that they wanted, especially having his contract this year, because it is a deal that they have him on. And my guess is they were looking at the Kemper thing of we can't be screwed not having a goalie, essentially. But I'm with you. If they've gotten the right deal, I would have done it. But this is why I'm saying there's a lot of moving parts here, and the forwards and the defensemen could work out, and then the goaltending could backfire on them. That's why I just don't like the makeup of this team right now. You need too many things to go right for the season to go correctly.
I do feel better about their defensive core in general.
Sure.
I actually, those are the moves that I actually feel very bullish about that they did, that is going to make them better. I'm with you on the goaltending. I'm not sure. That's what's been weird. For years, they kind of homegrown their own goaltender, and they haven't been able to do it the last few years. Samsonov was an unfortunate miss. And then since then, they haven't brought anybody up, so they haven't developed whoever that's going to be. I do feel really good about the moves that they made on defense. Like, I actually think those are going to be fine, and those are going to work, and they're going to be better. The other ones are the take a shot ones. And you mentioned Pierre-Luc Dubois. I will say this, when Walton said this the other day to me, he said, he's on a line with Tom Wilson and Connor McMichael. That could be really good. That could be formidable, actually. Like, that line reads to me like that has a chance to be really, really good and arguably their best one. So I actually feel good about that coming into the season. But I also, I'm a little apprehensive about a guy he's on his 4th or 5th team, got an 8-year deal, and the team that gave him the 8-year deal wanted to get rid of him. Like, that actually, that's hard to ignore. But just on its face, to be an optimist, I like the setup of that line, and I think they could be actually very, very productive.
Yeah, you have Tom Wilson, too, who's not coming off an injury, right? He's had a full offseason to rebuild his strength. And with McMichael, the chatter with McMichael last year was pretty simple. He was in the previous Hershey Calder Cup run, played a long time in the summer. That playoff run went into July, and then he had to be ready to go for Caps training camp. Around January, February, the talk around the team was basically that some of these Hershey guys were exhausted from the whole entire year. Now you have McMichael, who didn't have to play in that Hershey run last season, and now all of a sudden gets to prepare to be an NHL player. I expect him to have a really good breakout season. I think if there's anybody that I'm circling that could really kind of pull this team into a better tier, it's going to be McMichael. He's a former first-round pick. People forget that he was really good with Team Canada as a junior player. These guys have pedigree. I'm with you. That line's going to be really interesting, and especially with all the factors, right? It's like the land of misfit toys. McMichael was exhausted last year. Wilson was coming off an injury, and you have Dubois, who really wants to make a name for himself now.
Super villains typically do get along, and Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson are villains that are very different types of villains, but together could be a superpower. So I'd like that one on its face. I like. All right. Last thing. Will Ovechkin break the record this year?
No, I don't think he will.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think so.
I do think it'll be closer than you think. Like, I think he's going to get to like 35. Like, he's going to be very close.
So the tickets for the year after are going to be outrageous in October, November, and December to see when he's going to actually break it. Yeah.
Old Ted, if he's 7 goals away, is asking the NHL, please put 3/4 of our home games in the first half of the season. I mean, that's the way it should be. You get to make that ask. I think it's going to be very close. And then next year we get to do pretty much a victory lap where he's only got to score 7 to 10 goals to break the record. I think he's going to get in striking distance and he's just going to run out of runway. And then that is going to be a really fun offseason of everyone kind of hyping that up and see what they do from there.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bram and Callow, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.